SEALs were established at the beginning of our involvement in the Vietnam War, and originally they were advisors to Vietnamese units, one of which was the Vietnamese SEAL teams.
You're basically an advisor. You eat, sleep, train them, and bury them. And you get to a point where you become hardened. When you look at somebody who 1 minute is alive, the next minute they're dead, if you let it get to you, it will. You have to think ahead. We completed the mission, we'll come back for another mission.
When the Vietnamese SEAL teams went to Saigon in 1966, the powers to be saw that as an opportunity for SEALs, U.S. SEALs, to go down and start combat operations. It started in February of 1966.
I was with the Alpha Platoon, Scotty Lyon, Don Crawford. That turned out to be what they call now, referred to and put them in Time Life books as the Dirty Dozen, Vietnam style. And our mission was basically interdiction, deny enemy supply routes, kidnap and assassinate the leaders, or assassinate the leaders. We operated on targeted information.
Throughout 1966, there was a detachment of SEALs in Na Bay, and they operated in a place called the Rung Zat Zone, which means killer swamp. It was an area that no one wanted to operate in, U.S. or Vietnamese.
You know, it was all land warfare over there. We were stationed in My Tho, which is down in the Delta where they grow rice. I mean, you're walking in water this deep all the time.
Yeah, we did operate barefoot a lot because the sucking sound of your foot in mud or with a boot, things like that. And that actually probably saved my life, because I stepped on a punji stake at one time. Natural reaction, I jerked my foot back off. If I'd have had a boot on, I'd have lifted that brick, and the brick had a demolition charge underneath it. And but my foot just ripped back off.
The operations that we ran were intelligence gathering, ambushes, and direct action operations where we would get information usually from Vietnamese that had been captured or that the SEALs had captured, and they would go into an area and try to capture somebody, capture caches of food and weaponry. They would ambush units as they were moving on canals normally.
We had a Viet Cong commander, and he was good. We'd go up to camps and we'd talk to these people and stuff, and then we'd have targeted information. And we did liberate a POW camp. We went out and brought in a great big medical cache. You know, some of those things that we had good information telling us, and he'd guide us right to our target.
These detachments were very successful, and eventually SEAL platoons of 2 officers and 12 enlisted men were stationed throughout the Mekong Delta, the southern area in South Vietnam, and did the same types of operations. Eventually they went into operations where they would try to free POWs. They went after the Viet Cong infrastructure, the political wing, not necessarily the guys carrying weapons, but the individuals that ran the whole Viet Cong infrastructure. By 1970, the Viet Cong in the south, in the Four Corps area, were pretty decimated. SEALs had a major part of that from the intelligence gathering and finding individuals.
BUMED had control of corpsmen, and that's why they couldn't go to training. And at E7, at that time, a lot of the corpsmen were getting transferred out.
We realized many years ago was that we needed the corpsmen to go through BUDS training. And we actually fought for this because BUMED would not send us to BUDS training back in those days. They said they were losing too many people because it seems like either the corpsmen weren't motivated enough, or They just couldn't handle whatever they were putting out at BUD/S.
The only way to get to the teams at that time was to go special ops technician. And you had to be a second class and go to first class diving school, and then on to underwater swim school and jump school, then to become assigned to a team.
But we needed the corpsmen coming into the teams to be trained so that they could actually say, yeah, I did it all. I went to Hell Week. I completed the training. And we knew they also needed more first aid training than they got for just being a hospital A school graduate. We'd get a young guy into the teams who'd just been a graduate of A school. What did he know how to do? Take a temperature and a blood pressure or something? He wasn't ready to go out into the field, into combat medicine.
You know, you always live under the umbrella. You never had Hell Week. And one thing about SEAL team people, when you get them together, usually they're not talking about war things. They're talking about their training. And invariably, they always talk about Hell Week, about what Joe Blow did or how goofy he was or whatever. So probably that was the biggest shadow in my heart.
I was the first corpsman to ever make a med cruise with a UDT team. My chief, I was second class then, my chief told me, who I believe was an E8 at the time, Ed Berets, he said, Doc, you got to do everything these guys do, and you got to do it better than they do. I'll put you with a new swim buddy each time we have a swim. You'll be the wind dummy jumping out of the plane first, going in. Don't get hurt, because you got to take care of the rest of the guys that come down after you. So yeah, we had to prove ourselves. One of my guys in the platoon, who I'd been with for 6 months, walked into our little sick bay in the Quonset hut that we had there at Little Creek and asked, where's Doc Clark? And they said, he's out doing PT. Can I help you? And he said, no, I'll sit here and wait. So when I came back in 20 minutes later, the kid sitting there in my platoon said, hey, Doc, give me a couple APCs. And they're like aspirin, all-purpose capsules, you know. But anyways, he wouldn't ask anybody else. I was his corpsman, and then kind of had the feeling I was accepted then.